What's up, GP? Tidbits of Audacity coming at you. Granger, but there's only one Granger this time. Why? This is a special edition. I'm hanging out with a friend, Jeremy Fox, therapist, LPC in the great state of Georgia. We had a great conversation today. I want you to check this out.
Shark dressed man, trust the therapist in sunglasses.
Nah.
Right? Don't push the blade in the guy in shades. Oh no, I wear my sunglasses at night. You know that song. That's exactly right. All right. Well, I am so glad that you could make it here. So this is someone that I know very well from Substack, who is a fellow male therapist, and that's always needed. Everybody in TV land. So thank you for coming here and joining.
Man, I was excited to meet you. I've told you this before, but I learned when I'm watching the Fox Den, I'm learning, bro. Like I learn, I get on, I go, oh, that's cool. And I knew, like when I first found you on Substack, I remember going, I feel like this is not meant to just butter you up, but this is a fact. I felt like I was actually like at school. You'll put something out and I'll go, oh yeah, that's so cool. Like I felt like I was just like taking in like classwork almost. And there's a few of you guys out there that I'm watching like that I'm going, let me just get into this as heavily as possible. And so anyway, that's where I found you. I mean, when I saw you out, and I was connecting with some people that were also fans of yours, and so they were all like, "Oh, you got to watch this guy. You got to see this guy."
Oh, okay.
And so I kept being drawn back to what you were doing, and I was like, "What's going on, man?" I keep talking. Anyway, that's where this started.
Yes. I appreciate that. Well, I would love to ask you what got you on Substack as a platform. There's so many platforms to be on, and Substack is a newer one that's all about long form essays and the written word. So what drew you to that?
It was a couple of things. I wrote songs for a long time. I was a songwriter in Nashville, and I had the gift of being able to write, but I knew I didn't want to write songs anymore because nobody was going to cut them. The industry's changed, and when it changed, it moved me out, and the way it changed, and so I just thought, I didn't really have a desire to write songs anymore. And I kept wanting to write, found it, and I was like, I still, even then when I started for sure, but even now I still feel a little outmatched, if you will, a little humble about whether or not I can, keep up. But at the time, I definitely felt that way. And I got on, I looked around, and I was like, man, what's going on with this format? Like these people are really writing, and I'm like this guy who just used to write songs. Like, what am I talking about?
Right.
But at the time, I was also already working on my first book, so I was like, well, let me just pop some of this out and see what happens. And I was almost testing some of the stuff when I first got on here. I was testing out chapters I'd written for another book, and so that's really what I think. It was just about the writing. It was about the fact that you could easily and quickly find people who weren't just in there to troll people and yell at people and just go stupid. And it was like, man, we could actually just talk and share ideas. Because think about it, I can share an idea with you, and you're gonna take that idea, like you actually, Jeremy. You'll take an idea and go, well, okay, but what about this? And next thing you know, we'll bounce ideas, and then something really cool comes out of the backside of it, right?
Right.
I couldn't find that in other formats. I just wasn't. All I was finding was, nope, you're stupid, you're racist. Okay, what?
Yeah.
Why is this the default? Why can't we just share ideas? And when I got on Substack, and the more I was on it, the more I found that was happening. Is we were just sharing ideas.
Brilliant. Well, Substack is a platform where it seems many people are heavily invested with their actual identity, and they're less likely to be senselessly trolling for fun. I don't think a lot of people go to Substack, at least not yet, thankfully, to just play the role of the anonymous jester. It seems to be where people want to build an authorship base. They want to carve out a niche or an identity as a writer and keep themselves adherent and responsible, accountable to a schedule for writing. So it seems that builds more of a collaborative, let's ping pong ideas off and be professional writers or semi-professional writers than something like X. So, which is a pity. I think X can be an awesome platform.
Can be, right?
It can be. There's a lot of great thinkers there, but with Substack, there is something there, I think, of people wanting to regularly create a voice. And if you're curating a voice in good faith, you probably aren't going to want your name associated with tearing others down. And so I think this gets into also, I won't get too ahead of myself, but the idea of dating and friendships and reputational consequences. There's few reputational consequences now if you're trying to build friendships or dating. And so that has made people pivot into bad acting, treating others as objects and numbers. And so when you have your reputation attached to something, you're going to behave with more goodwill and as a good actor, someone who cares about outcomes probably. And I mean, if sometimes shame or the idea that you could be shamed is only motivator that will get people. So
Yeah, that's funny you said that, because I was
yeah,
just thinking about shame the other day and how we treat it as though it's a 100% negative thing.
yeah, and I
There's
mean
actually
like guilt.
positives,
Yeah,
right? But there's actually some positives to it.
yeah,
Like, and you think about it, we were just, talking about somebody we think might have been a, pedophile at one time, and it's like if somebody's a pedophile, they should be shamed. We should 100%, de-incentivize
yeah.
that
I mean, it should be
social.
stigmatized.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes, agree with you.
Does that makes sense, or am I off?
No, I think you're right. I think culture has to say these things are not laudable. These are not virtues, and so it is not a virtue to act with impunity only for yourself. I think that is lionized now. That is
Mm.
enshrined. Follow your heart is a nice way to say let nobody get in your way. So, I mean, I want to be clear here. That doesn't mean in your career. That doesn't mean you do something and you live to everyone else's standards and you people please, because that's not the message that I think people need to hear at all.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, let's
Interjection.
go for it.
Interjection.
No, that's what it's for.
Somebody just hit me up 2 days
Yeah,
ago.
let's
Okay,
talk about
I
it.
know. Honestly, second. This is what they said. I want to get your brain on this one.
Love
Okay?
it.
This is what they said. I talk a lot about life being about others. Okay,
Yeah.
if when your life is at its best, it's about others,
Uh-huh.
and it's like you're doing something for an outward motivation, even though you're doing something internally.
Yeah.
And so it's about make it about others, make it about others. Somebody said this.
Intrinsic.
Yes, somebody says this. They said, "Hey, but where's this line? Where's this boundary line that says it's about others, but then you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
But is taking care of yourself selfish if you're not taking care of others? Like, where is this boundary line?" Now I know how I answered them, but you just hinted to that. So it's more so about the question. I think really ended up being, when you're doing something for others, do you find yourself, is it not too much a big problem that you become a people pleaser? You get into doing something for somebody else and now you're just a people pleaser. It's like, okay. My take on it was what's the motivation? Why am I doing it? Not what am I doing? And I think they were concerned about what they were doing. So like where's that line, I guess, is when you got somebody that comes in and goes into the counseling room.
Yes.
Have you seen enough of each side of that? Somebody going too much to others, they never take care of themselves, and somebody that only takes care of themselves and never takes care of others.
I have.
Okay.
I have seen that. So, of course, I'll expand on that. So, I think you nailed it right there for the listeners. Underline 3 times. It's not what, it's why. It's so the why of what we're doing matters, and that's how to think like a therapist. So, you could be doing a lot. You could be like Jim Jones, and you could be starting Jonestown, and it could look like you're doing amazing work, and then people end up unalived. That's for the YouTube. Say that instead of the D word.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then on the other hand, you could have someone who's building a great app or program and cares about others and is steeped in their work and is not that social. And so it looks like it's very selfish because they're creating this company. And so, but what's their end goal with it? What are they going to do? So you can look selfless, but not be. And you can look selfish to an extent and not be. Let's not go wild with that second one. But I think when we talk about people pleasing, there is there's kind of a controversial point here. People pleasing is seen as a selfless thing, and it is on one hand. On the other hand, people are pleasing others because they're afraid often of losing someone. So if you think about it this way, people will say God gave humanity free will because if he made us love him, we are robots. There is no choice. So that's where a lot of people will come in faith is say, and we could go into that round and round as both as Christians, but if someone is only pleasing others because they're afraid of being abandoned or they are afraid of repercussions because their childlike state of thinking gets activated when they fear disappointing others, right? So they avoid it and they continue pleasing. They're not really choosing something out of love as much as fear. Okay.
Mm.
So if you are pleasing others out of fear that they will leave, or you're wanting to shrink because you don't want to risk losing something or risk a fight or what have you, that's people pleasing. If you're doing things for others because you fear what you'll lose, that's people pleasing. If you're doing it because you love to see their happiness, you love to surprise them, you love to use your gifts in new ways that surprise you and others, that's the right motivation.
There was an old story of Abraham Lincoln. He's driving down the road with the guy that was driving for him, and he was telling him that all men do things for internal motivations. And he was like, "No, they don't. You do things to help other people." He goes, "No, it's all about yourself." And about this time, they're going over a bridge, and there's a bunch of pigs on the side of the road. And there was a piglet that was stuck in the embankment, and the mother pig was just screaming. And he said, "Pull over." And he pulled over, and he got this little piglet out, put it up on, and they all just kind of took off happily ever after. He gets back in the carriage, and the driver says, "See, you did that for them." He goes, "I did not do that for them. I would have stayed up all night having nightmares if I wouldn't have taken care of that pig and helped it out. I did it for me." And the story goes is like, there's this other aspect of what you just said. If I do something for others, I also know it's going to help me.
Right.
See there, and I don't know that that's a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
People call that a bad thing sometimes. And I'm like, no. For
They
instance,
need to get outside.
Well, yeah.
And play some kick.
How about oxytocin? Okay, so one of the ways that it's released is through touch or through generosity, through acts of generosity. So if I know that if I'm going to do something for somebody, it's like the story somebody said, you stand on the corner and a $100 bill falls out of a guy's back pocket and he goes. You could do anything. What do? You pick up the $100 bill, you hand it back to him. When he realizes what you've done for him, he gets a hit of oxytocin. Because you did it, you get a hit of oxytocin. And anybody that witnessed it gets a hit of oxytocin to their body.
Okay. Bonding chemical.
It's the only thing that can do what it did.
Yes.
And that is, I'm going to help you, but also it's going to help me. Not that that's the motivation. Again, we're back to the why. Not that that's the why, but man, that's a piece of it that I think people lose sight of, and they feel like, oh, I can't do it about me. And that story of Lincoln going, yeah, but we do,
So I think that there are personality types and temperaments that think in different ways. This is where personality as a filter really comes into play, because if you are highly, highly introspective and very concerned with first principles and the root cause of things, which I respect. I think we need that in the therapy world. But you can get so lost in the weeds. So essentially, if you as a person feel so that was a great story, because if you feel and you know yourself well enough that you would have nightmares or other thoughts that I should have done something, why? Because it makes me So view it this way. It makes me feel guilty if I did something wrong. Why? So I want to do the right thing. Well, why do you feel guilt at all? Because you're imagining the other person's consequence, the thing that you could have prevented. So yes, you don't like having to live with that, but that is someone else's pain. So you could say, now, if you ask that person, if you could take a pill and take away the guilt instead of helping, would you do it? And if they say yes, then you have a problem. If they say no, because that would let me know, that would take my radar offline to know to do the right thing, then they're choosing that they would still have the feelings to help others. You could get really meta and super philosophical with this, and I'm fine with that. But I think at the end of the day, we need to say that goodness can exist. Some people, and I'm not calling anyone out because I don't know who you were talking about, some people are so skeptical that good can exist, and they need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, like doubting Thomas, that it exists. Show me the nail print to Christ. Like, show me that this is good. Well, as close as it is having an internal moral compass that says it's a good thing that I would be kept up at night if something I could do easily to help others, even animals, I didn't do. That's a good thing. So why? Because you didn't help them. Well, would you want that to be gone? Again, like I said, the person who says yes, they're probably, they feel tormented by people pleasing or what have you, and they need to reset and have an appropriate level of feeling responsible for others.
I think,
so important.
I think one of the biggest pieces of everything you just said is social reciprocity.
Yes.
We're designed and wired to be horizontal, right?
Parallel play.
Vertical first.
Yes.
Horizontal second, but still that's how we're wired. And so it's like, where does that, all that stuff to me comes into like, how is this going to help the societal aspects? I don't want to be rejected. Why? Because it's social. I don't want to be left out because it's social. I don't want to, I don't want, I want them, whatever. All of that to me is just, it's the society at play kind of thing. Thomas Sowell talks a lot about incentive structures. I'm a big Thomas Sowell guy. Incentive structures and the reasons why we do things and the nature of good, like our human nature. Well, what is the potential of human nature? And his take on it is that human nature is so flawed that at best in a societal system, we just restrict the malevolent, which allows the rest of us to play freely. That's his take.
Okay.
And I can't fully disagree with it from a societal level, but I think what you and I are talking about is probably more so on the level. Which is where you get people to go, well, is there really good? Can good even exist? My take on that is if there's an objective morality anywhere, then it's everywhere.
Sure.
If it exists at all, it exists. Period.
That's a good take.
Let's talk about what you wanted to talk about. I know you got some notes.
No, well, we will, but I like that. So I'm going to say a few things, and I think this is going to be where some application comes in for listeners and viewers is many human beings are in the middle of the bell curve when it comes to morality. And you've got on the far end, you have people who are malevolent, as you would put it, characterologically. So psychopathic, sociopathic. And then you have toward the middle, which is good days, bad days. I want to do what's right. If it's too hard, it's tough, and I'm probably going to fail. Then you have on the far other end of that spectrum, you have the saints, you have the great moral leaders and revolutionaries and people who have developed their sense of morality, because as therapists, we know there's stages of moral development, Kohlberg stages of development, right? Most people stay in a kind of conventional range and don't go past that for different reasons. And that's fine. But I think what we have to keep in mind is nature and nurture play their part. Nature comes into play for things like psychopathy to an extent with reduced brain structures. I think orbital prefrontal cortex, if I'm not mistaken. Other structures involved in more the different parts. Amygdala. I think there's some shrinkage in the amygdala that potentially makes it easy, like less frightening to think of certain things or want. Well, so that's the biological nature. But when it comes to nurture, you have things like slowly desensitizing yourself to that which is wrong. And so I was thinking about this yesterday, that I think quick, rapid texting was not good for humanity, because I don't think we need impulsive ways to send non-contextual content. By that, I mean, a phone call is great. It's very contextual. You hear tone. A written letter is good because you have to think about it while you're writing it and you send it. You have to double check. It's baked in, the element of delaying and being thoughtful about it. But texting is a kind of perversion between the phone call and the letter. None of the care of the letter and none of the context of a phone call. So I think we're trained now to be impulsive and self-centered. And I think those people in the middle of the bell curve, I think many people are susceptible to it. And they're not choosing to be malevolent, but many people are being trained into thoughtlessness. Right?
It's like it's the bad side of desensitization.
Right.
There's a good side to this.
Well, culture dictates so much. So, some cultures are all about, and this is more in the past than now, but like war or sacrifice, human sacrifice, right? Like that's normal to that culture. So the nurture part of things, how our desires come out, the things that we worship as virtues can change from culture to culture and be better or worse. And so America was founded on a lot of principles of equality and caring, and I think, and conscientiousness of the public. And so if we're going toward a world of suit my needs now or you're nothing in any technology, dating, friendship, however, and we learn to conceive things in a way that's so selfish and no good, then literally no good in it. So it's no good in that sense, and there's no good being valued besides I'm lonely, I need a person who fits my shopping specifications. That's not morally good.
Right.
If anything, it's amoral.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you could say immoral, because amoral is without morals.
Right.
Immoral is wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'd love your thoughts on that. Like, as someone who has seen a few decades worth of human behavior, if you notice things changing, because I don't want to sound like an alarmist. I think there's a lot of room to turn things around, but I'm curious your thoughts.
On the what you're calling a like a severe immorality kind of thing.
Yeah, how people view what our starting point is, I guess you could say. So you said it's great. Well, your worldview, when you're doing things for others and it's about others, it's great. I agree, but that means that also you do deserve the satisfaction knowing you help someone. God allows us to feel that. If we weren't supposed to feel that, we wouldn't be wired that way, right? And I want to be careful because it's like, oh, what if somebody's wired to be psychopathic? It comes out that way. Normatively, if something is a trend across human nature, such as when it comes to kindness, if there's something baked in where kindness feels good, we should, as Christians, look at that and say, wait a minute. We should not look at that and be like, oh, that's not fair. We should feel bad while it's happening. What?
Yeah, no.
Seriously? God, go take a hike. Like, go get some dopamine if you that much hate the idea that humans can be good.
No, yeah. It seems like what I've seen over time is that things take care of themselves because of societal pressure. So
Okay.
that's what I've
Say
seen.
more. I
Yeah,
like that.
that's what I've seen. I've seen where you got like for instance, technology changes, and then society finds new room for things that new room for skills that may have gotten outsourced by a job.
Yes.
We just move the skill.
Yes.
Social interactions almost happen the same way.
Yes.
Social interactions it's like, okay, we think this is, now granted, there has been some, back to the word desensitization, there has been some desensitizing of, for instance, the way people dressed and what people wore to a water park, let's say. It's like we have we've kind of dialed back and kind of gotten looser and looser.
You mean if they wear anything?
Right. So
Yeah.
we've dialed back and gotten looser and looser with what we are okay with. For instance, when I was a kid, after nine is when you could say any type of cuss word on TV, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just everywhere all the time.
Sure.
So
I agree with
we've
your point.
desensitized that level of what we might consider, and I wouldn't consider that morality as much as just decency might be a better word, but
I like that.
We've dialed that back over time, so there is an element to that. But I think even within that, so let's say we've changed that structure of what you can say on TV or whatever. Even within that, there's still a societal pressure to be a good human being.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're going to be ostracized from the group, and everybody wants to be in the in group. And the moment that you start doing something that's out, you end up in an out group, which is the one time. See, there's the one place where you don't see what I just talked about: social media. You can be anywhere, anytime, and hide behind a pseudonym, and you could be, whether or not you're in an in-group or out-group doesn't really matter. You're clicking buttons and you're pissing people off.
You're right. So I like that. And I would say this, I mean, many people do. The unexamined life is very tormented. So you truly must look at your motivation. So that's where a lot of people now, a lot of vulnerable narcissism, fragile narcissism is misdiagnosed as depression. Well, nothing's going to solve that until the person learns how to self-soothe, how to find something worth living for that's not being worshiped or aggrandized or validated 24/7. So from Freudian terms or object relations, you have to introject the caregiver and have self-soothing. You have to internalize. So you have a caregiver, then you have a security blanket, like Linus's blankie from Peanuts, for everybody out there who loves that comic strip. Shout out to the Gen Xers and the Boomers. So then you have, though, the internalized blankie. You have the internalized person that first you have the caregiver, then the transitional object, like a toy or something, and you have, not everybody has that, but so if you don't have that for whatever reason, because your parent didn't make you feel safe, they made you an extension of themselves, maybe, and you had no use beyond what it was to them, then you're likely to not have that self-soothing. And you can go by borderline way, or you could go narcissistic way. Whenever the way the chip falls down a Plinko board is like how genetics fall into some kind of tendency, and the bounds on that determine where the chip goes. It goes into either like that $1 slot, which could be one diagnosis, or the $100 slot. That's what genetics and environment do. So I talk a lot when I'm podcasting about unexamined life elements, like why we do things to reproduce, or to survive. So evolutionary psychology says human nature just is about survival. It's not good or bad, really. It's just about survival. And Christianity says human nature was meant to be utterly perfect. It's marred, and now it's about, oh, survival at any cost. So you have some starting points that are from that. What's not congruent with Christianity or evolutionary psychology is this idea that everyone is born perfect and something knocks them off course. That is something, I wonder if you've noticed that, because that is that's a humanist view. And I don't know where you see that borne out. I think everyone has to, as Freud would say and the Bible would say, both. Again, it's funny. Freud would probably hate that. Like, he doesn't understand.
Oh,
He
yeah,
didn't
he
escape the shadow.
We wouldn't like the connection, but
No,
you're right.
but he didn't escape. He didn't escape the shadow, though. The idea that human beings are naturally evil, not evil. Let's not use that strong word. As Christians, that doesn't really shock us. But the idea that we are fallen beings. So I think that's liberating, because it says it's not abnormal to need to prune overgrown branches, to prune your faults and to work on them. And I think you create blind spots. I don't think I know when you say, well, everything somebody does is great. It's just not understood yet. Or I was wondering if you've noticed your worldview interacting with other worldviews around human nature. That would be a good thing to jump off on.
So I'm going to go back to Thomas Sowell, because
Okay.
he talks a lot about this, and he talks about how he kind of juxtaposes it into two visions. And he said, there's a vision that says that human nature, like what I said earlier, there's this one vision, and he called it the constrained vision, where it's a restraint of sorts. So the constrained vision is, human nature is sort of malevolent by nature, where if given this opportunity, we're going to be given to power, greed, tyranny. So what we need to do is we just need to restrict that behavior. And what that allows is it allows everybody else to play freely.
Okay? Yes.
What he said, the unconstrained vision says that you actually you have the potential for perfection. And the only thing that's stopping you is some system, some institution. There's an institution, there's a system, there's a zeitgeist, right? That's been created that just gets in your way. And if we can we need to change it. And the only way that we can change it is by completely wiping it from the face of the earth and starting over.
Yeah.
And that's the other vision. And so that vision almost uses that whole blank slate, theory.
Yes.
In that it's like, oh, we can just create what we want to create, and now you can be great. Whereas back to what you were saying, I think that the biblical worldview is that the moment Adam, we could get into that one. I don't think it was Eve. I think it was Adam. The moment that Adam did what he did, because think about it, boy, sidebar. Eve took the bite, nothing happened.
Okay.
She handed it to Adam. He took the bite, their eyes were opened.
Interesting.
There's a lot behind that.
There is a lot behind that.
But
fascinating.
The moment that happens, from that point on, human nature's doomed. Okay.
Sure.
In a way. If you don't think you're doomed, you don't have a need for a savior.
Exactly.
So if you view yourself as, you know what, I'm incapable of perfection, but I can pursue the perfection. This is like, okay, so I was having this conversation the other day with somebody about a mutual friend. And I said, look, the thing about this guy, because they were like, I can't figure this guy out. I said, let me tell you, the thing about this guy is, so this particular person, he's very, very, very frugal to the point of being super cheap. He's scared to take any risk. He's scared to make any steps forward. He's afraid of life in general, but good guy, smart guy, awesome human being to be around, would trust him with my kids.
Yeah.
It's not about character. It's just about how he sees life. I said, well, listen, the reason is this guy's highest aim is himself.
Okay.
He has nothing to aim up at.
Right.
There's no, and unfortunately, I tend to use philosophical terms here because I don't like to source out people that get that are averse to biblical words.
Yeah.
So I'll use philosophical words, and I'll say, look, find an ineffable telos. Find the high aim that ineffable is like so great you almost can't describe.
I can see that. Yes.
And so you've got this ineffable telos, this highest level of aim that's almost indescribable. What is that? To me, that's God.
Yes.
So if you have this aim that's above you, now when you fail, it's okay. You're still striving, you're failing forward. You're still striving towards something that's bigger and greater than you.
Yes.
If you don't have anything that's an upward aim like that, you're literally just aiming at the guy in the mirror, and that dude's going to let you down.
Brilliant. I mean, what I would say that is there's so many Christians out there living without a telos, without a meaning. I've had Christian clients where they know they're saved, but where do you go next? Like, well, you find what you think God's intended reason for you to be here is, and it's not works based. I think Catholics and Protestants can both go their own separate ways and struggle with certain thought processes that the other don't. But for Catholics, they have this idea of continually striving, and I like that. Now, I don't personally, I'm not Catholic, but I do think, what comes to mind is adoration. So the practice of sitting in adoration of Christ and contemplating, Christian meditation. Love that idea. Protestants could use that. There's nothing anti-Protestant about that. So when you talk about contemplating the ineffable truth, the telos, the beauty and truth, which is nearly beyond human understanding, and it would be, because if we were created by something, which I believe we were, then that creator is going to be more complex than us. Just like the machines we create and things we do are come from us and are constrained by what we know. So, but we are beyond that. So how much more so than God, with God? So I like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, I think that people miss that. And on the Protestant side, the idea is, well, I'm saved. What now? I'm going to heaven. Well, what now is sanctification. And what you bring up for the listeners, twofold. Okay. I'm thinking two things. First of all, ACT, acceptance commitment therapy.
Yep.
Now, I've made a lot of jokes about it. I've used it before. I've called it, therapy where there's an exercise where you say milk, milk, milk until it doesn't make sense as a word anymore.
I've done that a lot because I'm ridiculously weird and I do that. I'm like, what if you said this word 80 times?
Yeah.
It no longer makes sense.
So, and I did a little comedic bit on that. But I would say, right, as one does, because it is funny. I did it in person at training, and it was like, we were all instructed to do it. I was like, okay. All right. So, but you look at ACT, which is built upon pursuing values/virtues, whatever you want to call it. And they're things that you strive for, but can never reach.
That's it.
That's what you're talking about.
That's it.
When it comes, and the Stoics talked about it, and it's a lot sexier and romantic because that's connected to a whole school of philosophy, like the ideas of striving for wisdom, temperance, justice, honor, all these things that as men, you're not hearing from the church as much because people will put their sermons to what the crowd kind of wants or needs to hear, thankfully, hopefully.
Right.
And if it's the latter, then you'll get stuff like that. But we need to be talking about that, especially for men, because they will respond to that well. Men love quests. Men love to fight and win. And so when you're fighting and winning, but you can never win the war because it's called life, it's life that is your continual quest, you'll do well, but you'll flounder if you don't think of your faith as a journey. And you're not doing it to earn your way to heaven. That's the wrong view. The view is you want to grow in God. Yeah. He loved you first. Yeah. So you want to show that you can change and grow. You'll never be perfect and stop sinning totally, but you can hone your character and develop it.
Well, what I tell men when I got men in my room and along those lines is this is what I tell them. With every step that you take closer to the perfection you're actually never going to reach, you look more like the perfection and less like yourself.
Yes.
The old you, I guess I'm going to say. The you that you're trying to get rid of.
Right.
So I use a great example. When I was dating my now wife, I had the most severe temper, and my wife, my girlfriend at the time, it's so weird to say, she looked at me and she said, you can either have your temper or you can have me, but you can't have both. And I said, yes, ma'am.
That's a moment.
I better figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, okay, so I'd rather have her than my temper. So I better figure out what the hell I'm doing with my temper. All right. So I had to start really looking at that. What I had to do, philosophically speaking, is take more steps towards God, who does not have a temper. Yes, he does have vengeance and he has anger and he has violence, but he doesn't have a temper. That's different. Okay.
Because everything God does, he chooses to do, and is not an impulsive loss of temper.
In righteousness.
Right.
If it was something in anger and righteousness, it was a righteous anger. It's righteous anger to watch walk outside here, see a man kick a dog and be really pissed off at that dude. That's a righteous anger. That's worth talking about.
Right.
But for every step you take towards that perfection, you get more like, so every step I took towards a God that helped me relinquish that temper, I began to be more calm, less violently angry.
Okay? Yes.
So
brilliant.
That's what I'm telling them. Like, just take it for every step you take towards. It's just like the dopaminergic system. People always think it's the end game. It's not the end game. It's every step towards the end game. Every step you take towards it, dopamine. Take another step towards it.
It's the interest chemical.
Yes. So it's boom, boom, boom. It's step oriented. I'm going to create steps towards this perfection. And with every step that I take towards it, I'm being perfected. I'm becoming better version of me. And so I
Mhm.
tell that to guys a lot when I'm in the room with them, because you get this a lot. I don't know how much you get this. I get this a lot. The guys go, "What's the point?" They get this real. I don't know if nihilistic it's too far, but man, it's not that far from nihilism.
It's kind of learned helplessness.
That's a
Okay.
good. That's a good.
I,
That's a good phrase for it.
yeah.
They get to, well, what's the point? I go, the point is, when you do that, here's what happens. It's the pebble in the pond. Boom, you get a little bit better. It helps your family. It helps your community. It goes outward, and everybody benefits when you go there.
Okay.
That's just something I've seen.
I agree with you. So they're asking, what is the point of what? I really want to hone in on that, of changing or trying to be more like God.
Yes, being like, because they'll often find themselves again. We could go down another rabbit hole, but it's where men, they'll go to do something and that they think their women want them to do, and then they get
Yeah.
mocked for it. Like they get vulnerable and they go, "What are you doing? Buck up and get over it, and sit down at the table. Dinner's ready." And it's this. Oh God, I tried to be vulnerable, and now I'm being made fun of, and I don't want to do this, or sometimes it's like, you know, I don't want to have to talk about my feelings. It's not how I'm built, but my wife won't leave me alone until I talk about my stupid feelings.
Yeah.
And what's the point? And they'll do that. Or there's all kinds of things that could make them better that they'll just kind of go, I don't want to do it. What's the point? I just want to be me. And you
Yeah.
go, here, that's just the problem. If I wanted to stay me, I'm only going to get so good.
Yeah.
I'm as good as I'm ever going to get if I take that mentality. And that's not satisfying. I've got to be a better version of me. Why? Because if I'm a better version of me, that means I'm a better version of a father. I'm a better version of a husband. I'm a better version of a coworker. It affects everything.
If you, as a man, have this view that the destination is everything and not the journey, first of all,
Mm,
quash that. That's
mm,
unromantic. And you will
yes.
never be a good romancer. You
Anything.
will not be, no, because the idea of savoring the steps along the way is intrinsic to happiness, number one. Number two, that's important for development. So it's important for your enjoyment, it's important for development. When something's important to both those, you should pay attention. So with men, one of the, again, plug for EMDR therapy. So Roger Kingerly in the UK has written about why EMDR therapy, which I can refresh people's knowledge on that in a second. Why that is something so useful for men, because men possess what Roger affectionately calls the reflection abandonment mechanism, or RAM. That when emotions start coming up, men quarantine those and don't let those come up. And there's reasons for that. I mean, you're doing a mission. If you're focused on production, you don't want to deal with feelings. So EMDR therapy, eye movement desensitization, reprocessing, has the client dial up his feelings like you're locking onto a signal. You get the thoughts, emotions, body sensations, images. You get into that trauma matrix, like you're in that phone booth in the movie. You lock on that signal, you go in, you desensitize it by facing it in the safety of your therapist's office. You let it out. You don't have to say any words you don't want to. You're going to the trauma matrix, facing it. You're not going in emoting unless you want to or need to. So I'm a big fan of that kind of work for men. It's like, well, what's the point? Well, the point is that then when your emotions hit, you don't act out only in anger, or you don't clam up. You don't feel low. You don't feel useless. You don't feel that shame. That's the point.
Mm,
That's the why.
mhm,
And you don't have to share every moment of it. And in good therapy, you don't have to anyway.
mm,
But I think for men asking that, I want to give them an out also and say, well, a lot of the time men get with partner. A lot of the men are skewed that come in our offices. They're going to have bad relationships. And often they're going to have partners that when they were dating, they didn't survey that partner's character enough.
mm,
And so it's going to be, well, I can never be vulnerable. It's never about me. How do I change that? Well, you may not be able to.
mm,
You signed an agreement with a marriage that things are basically going to be how they are from death till us part,
mhm,
till death to us part.
mhm,
So basically, I'm sorry. I think it's great to grow in a marriage, and you should, but the person who wants to do less can always skew things. And the person who wants to leave the most can skew things because they can kind of threaten that out, that nuclear option divorce. So it was relationships, it's crucial that you see how your partner reacts when you need something, when it's about you. And I think too many men don't focus on that. They put all of their eggs in the basket of a marital partner and don't even know if that partner is able to hold that or is wanting to.
mm. That's big. Let me tell you. I'll tell you a story I thought of as you were telling that. back to the RAM thing you were talking about,
Yeah.
is so I'm sitting at dinner. I'm a storyteller, by the way.
Good.
Um, I'm sitting at dinner and I get a call from my ex-wife that says, "Hey, our daughter just got in a wreck around the corner from your house. She flipped your car." Well, your car. I had just given her like a car, and bought myself a new one and gave her my old one. She flipped it right around the corner from my house. And I'm like, "That's all you know?" She goes, "I think she's okay, but get there as fast as you can." I got it. I take off. I leave dinner. I get there. Yeah, my car is in two pieces, actually. It had flipped and snapped. And somehow she just walked out of that car. Don't know. Still don't know how. Thing was completely crushed. And so it's like airbags and all kinds of stuff when I get there. And she just walks up to me and looks at me and goes, "Hey, uh, she said, I don't remember what she said, but it was something funny because she's a very funny girl. My girls are hilarious. And she said something funny, and I went, "Oh yeah, okay, you're fine. That's you. That you're good. You're making jokes. We're good." But I went ahead and like checked her for the whole shock thing. Maybe something happened. Is there shock? Is she in
Yeah.
shock and didn't realize she broke her arm? I was checking her anyway. I find she's okay. I'm like, okay, good. I look at the car. I'm like, she goes, "Sorry about the car, though, by the way." I said, "Honey," I said, "I've got insurance for that thing. I can't replace you. I can replace that." Right.
Right.
So that was my initial reaction. Her initial reaction was she literally was afraid that I was upset about the car. And I'm like,
Yeah.
give me a break. So once I check and I got, okay, I'm going to get this in order. I got that. Okay. I'll tell you what, my ex-wife pulls up a few minutes later. So my ex-wife, my wife, and my daughter all together, just what we really are around the corner from our house. So I said, "Y'all just go back to the house. I'll take care of this." I get them to walk back to the house. I get finish with the police officer who just want to make sure everything was good. Get the tow truck there. We get the car. I just tell him to just tow it to my house right around the corner.
Sure.
And because it's in two pieces, I'm going to have it hauled off anyway. And we take care of my point in all that is I'm taking care of business.
Yeah, you are.
Everything's boom, boom, boom. I'm in mode, right? I'm like, "I got this. You're good. Relax. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
Got insurance on this. We're fine." So she makes a joke, all is well. She goes back to the house. She ends up going home with her mother at the end of the night. I'm sitting there with my wife. At the end of my night, every night I read. And so I lay down and I grab a book and I'm in. That's what I do. I grab this book, and Jeremy, if I'm lying, I'm dying. The words look like they were doing this. Okay. The words were jumping on the page, and I couldn't my eyes were going, and I was like, okay, that ain't gonna work. So I sat there and I grabbed my phone and I thought, well, let me just play on Substack a minute.
And you read one of my articles.
And I do. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I read a Jeremy article and everything got better. That's the end of the story. Okay. Anyway, I'm like, I can't focus on this. I'm like, "Honey, I don't know what's going on, but I can't seem to all I'm thinking about is like all these other things, like what's going on tomorrow? What's going on the next day?" Well, my brain's going like this.
Yes.
And I couldn't focus. I couldn't do anything. And I definitely wasn't going to sleep.
Sure.
So I said, "Honey, I'm going to go outside for a second." I thought, let me just go outside and walk around, get a little air in my lungs. So I go outside, I start walking, and it hits me. It hits me. In the moment, I had stopped, parsed out the emotion that I needed for later and just chucked it to the side. Took care of the crisis at hand.
Yeah.
Became the man for the moment. Jason Wilson, one of my favorite writers, he wrote a book called The Man the Moment Demands. Be the man the moment demands.
Yes.
Sometimes that's the crisis manager. Sometimes it's the nurturer.
Yes.
Sometimes it's the fighter. Sometimes it's the crier. Be the man the moment demands. And in this moment, I was able to parse that out. I was able to address the crisis. And then I was able to come back later. Now that I've got crisis averted, everybody's well. The people that are depending on me can depend on me. I'm still remaining as reliable as I've ever remained.
Yeah.
Now I come back to the emotion. Oh,
yeah.
Right. And so that's when that story, I come back to that story and the end of that, and I'm going, oh, my daughter could have died. This is a really bad thing. And I processed the emotion. I told that story on one of my podcasts with my brothers, and I have a brother that was a long-time firefighter, and he's in that world, the firefighting world, right?
First
responder world. He looked at me, his mouth was on the floor, and I said, "What?" He said, "I've never heard of a man being able to process the emotion of something that difficult on the same day." So I've never even heard of that. Heard of that. By the way, he's in his late 30s. This isn't a young kid. And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, no, I don't even know what that is." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, guess what? That's probably something you probably need to start trying to incorporate." Maybe. I said, "Because it worked for me really well that night." is I processed the emotion following so that I didn't like stuff the emotion. That was my fear. My fear in that moment was if I don't pay attention to this, the thing that's making the words jump off the page.
Right.
If I don't stop and pay attention to this, I'm going to stuff it and it's going to cause a big problem later. It's going to be like lighting a piece of dynamite in front of God and everybody. And I told him that. He went, that's really cool. And I might start applying that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it accrues interest. I mean,
That's a good word.
sympathetic debt, you could call it. This underlying sense of dread, and it really narrows your window of tolerance, to use Dan Siegel's term, like how much you can take before going into hypervigilance or hypovigilance shutdown. So it's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, I think of trauma release exercises and that whole school of thought, which is basically somatic experiencing, where animals will shake off if they experience something physically traumatizing, like they're discharging that energy and then move on. I mean, there's this clip of a polar bear that's captured by hunters or someone. Maybe they were captured by conservators to be tagged. I need to go back and watch it, but it's been years. But basically, polar bear is captured and they're released, and it shakes a lot, shakes its body, and then runs off. So the animal instinct to shake out and complete those movements and feel in control again, to release the trauma, is something that we as human beings have to be aware of. Our makeup, our mammalian sort of lineage demands that there's some kind of closure. And I think that if you talk about going to take a walk, that's great. I mean, when you say process that, just for the listeners, what did that look like for you, if you don't mind me asking?
So do you mean,
like, was that just you facing it and thinking about it and saying, yeah, this happened and it was scary, but we're okay? Or did it mean you taking a few breaths, or what was that like?
it was, it was, well, okay. So originally I had no idea what was happening.
Right.
To be perfectly honest with you, I had no clue. I couldn't figure out why the words were jumping. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't stop
Yeah.
thinking about the 5 things I had to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It took me walking around and just getting a little wind in my lungs to go, oh, it's that. I'm feeling the emotion of that. And the emotion came over that was, she could have died. Like I could have a dead daughter right now. And then I was like, okay, but I don't. Okay. Right. So then there was the release or relief
Yes.
of that. So that was the process was, oh my God, and then it was, okay, wow. Okay. Oh, everything went okay. She's at home. She's asleep.
Right.
I went in, I even did I even did the sappy thing. I went in her bedroom in our house where she wasn't, because she went home to the mom. I even went in her bedroom and just kind of looked like, it was a good thing she's going to be in that bedroom. So like, it was just this, obviously gratitude followed quickly after, right?
Yeah.
So it was, oh my goodness, the shock and awe of what actually could be. And that was what was interesting to me, was I was able, and I was able to take that and go, whoa, and move it way over to the side and not even touch it, to be the man in the moment. To be the man in the moment, I was able to do that. What I sort of gathered from that experience, as far as the first experience, it's one of those things you read about a lot, you talk about a lot, you study, you get educated on, you talk to people who've gone through it. But when you experience it, you take another look. It brings another lens.
Yes.
And when I experienced it, I was able to go, okay, so what does that mean? That means, again, we're talking about being the man in the moment. I get in my practice, when it comes to men, I'm more of my population is blue collar tough guy. Okay. That's more of my guy. There's a guy, shout out to a Substacker named Dr. John Williams, who is I think he's out in California. His population is middle to upper class white collar. And so it's funny because he and I start comparing populations a lot. Like, well, what this thing, he'll put a thing up and then he'll go, what's that in your population? Well, it actually looks like this.
Yeah.
And we do this a lot. And so when we find similarities, we go, then that means it's cross-cultural.
Yeah.
And so we do that. We find ourselves doing that. In mine, I deal with men that are like, well, I don't, I just show up and do what I'm supposed to do. And that's, I get that guy. Right.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. And so now it's like, I was able to experience, okay, I was tough guy for the moment. Then I became soft guy when I needed to.
Yeah.
It's it's the it's the finding the guy in the middle, right? I recently wrote a note that said, how do you find the guy in the middle? By seeking the guy on the middle cross.
Ah, love that.
So it's finding the guy in the middle. I don't want to be so soft I'm crying at every puppy commercial. I don't want to be so tough that I can't feel my way through life at all.
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to find
Well said.
I want to find this middle ground, whatever this middle ground is. For men, I think it's the crossroads of productivity and generosity. I think it's a
Sure.
crossroads of productivity and generosity. I
Yes.
can't be so productive. I'm stingy, and I can't be so generous. I have nothing. I have to find the middle of productivity and generosity. It's like George Peterson says, the middle of order and chaos. It's the same concept. It's the crossroad concept where you find the middle. So that experience taught me that I was in the middle. And I felt good about that. I was like, wow, that's so good that you can be what you need to be when you need to be it.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
And I think for listeners, this idea of the integrated self is more important than ever. We all have different ego states, so part of our conscious personality that dominate at different times. So my humorous part, my scholarly part, the professional part, which is different because that's going to take into account what somebody needs to hear versus going and scouring a bunch of facts and making fun little diagrams. Like, well, does that matter to them? Like, there's all these different parts of ourselves that can activate. And remember what happens from part to part. That's what makes it baseline for like neurotypical people and not dissociative identity disorder. So, as men, masculinity is not, I need to be careful. So masculinity is not just a monolith of being stoic. That is an element.
Right.
And so it is an element. So is providing, protecting. So is fighting and winning. So is acknowledgement of your challenges. That's where men get stuck, whether it's white collar, blue collar. Is for a white collar guy, denial that a challenge is too much and he needs help in his business or in his role in the C-suite executive world or his middle management because he has responsibility without authority, like denying a problem and squashing the emotion till it's too late. And same with the blue collar worker, if he's dealing with some sort of issue with his job or role and can't quite figure it out and is feeling super burned out from it because you just don't ask for help in his world. So the stoicism element of positive masculinity is great, but it does not need to get in the way of other masculine virtues like ingenuity and figuring out how to solve the problem. And in our past culture, I know you mentioned before, you liked my interview with Brian Mayerhofer, and we were talking about men denying pleasure because male friendship was seen as something innately gay. It's a great point he made, and we were talking about that a little before recording. But what happened to men's networks of friendships? Because if you look at any shows from the 50s, from the advent of TV, when it was invented until around 90s probably, I'll include the 80s. I think there was this idea that as men, we can come together when we need to and bounce ideas off. If it's at a bar, if it's the bowling alley, if it's the lodge, right? The Grand Poobah Lodge with Fred and Martin.
There it is.
So like, what happened to that stuff? It's just such a question.
And that's a good point. You said a phrase that I don't think I've ever heard put like that in one of those. It might have been that interview with him where you talked about third spaces.
Yes,
and
third spaces.
Man, that's a big one.
So that's a place that's not home or work.
Right.
So a third space, and I had to learn that term. I think it's a sociology term, but we don't really have it because you think about Chipotle, you go in, get your bowl, get out. You think you could sit in there, but it's not a mingling place. You think about department stores, you think about anywhere that's not church, bingo hall, you name it. I mean, houses of worship and places of secular get-togethers is not really, they are not in the boom that they used to be, like scouts. And there's a whole thing with Boy Scouts or scouts for everybody. And people need to be sure their kids are safe. There was a lot of controversy around scout masters being creeps. And I get that. I don't think that's cool that ever happens. But I think kids and mentorship and then male fraternities really fell by the wayside. The third place, and for women too, like women have to just work at doing it and do women's Bible studies and create that in the church. Men can do it too. You do things like that. You foster that. But I think too often men are tribal and only family based. It's like, well, I'm gonna do that for my family and then I'm done. Like I'm not gonna going to have any other friends, or we're not going to do anything. And it gets normalized. Like, oh, guys will talk once a year and be okay. Haha, that's normal. I don't know that it is.
It's not.
I actually want to
It's
get
not.
controversial and say that's a Band-Aid. It's not. It's
Oh,
not healthy.
100%. No, there's no way that's normal. And it can't be normal. We can't make it okay that it's normal. It's not normal. It's a lot more normal. Look, I said, I posted a note not too long ago on Substack. I said,
all right, shout it out.
I said, well, I just said that I missed an old friend of mine.
Yeah.
And so he died. He got killed in a car wreck when we were 32.
Oh my gosh.
And we were raising our kids. He was my best friend from, we were like 16 years old. So we were going to raise our kids as cousins. Like we had this whole plan that things were getting mapped out in life and whatnot. But I just like, I remember when we hung out so much, people used to jokingly go like, oh man, because y'all were like never apart. And then we'd be like, ha ha, no. And then we just keep going. It didn't matter. Like, I don't owe you anything, but guess what? I don't care. But we just liked each other's company.
Yes.
And we liked being around each other. And then we had 2 or 3 other friends who were also kind of in our circle. And we liked their company. And we just went bowling and ate cheese sticks and told stupid jokes all night. Like that's like, what,
that's what men need to be happy. Everyone. That's it. Cheese sticks, bowling, and stupid jokes.
That's it. Bad jokes with some cheese sticks, a little extra marinara.
See, solving the male loneliness epidemic.
That's how we just did it.
What makes our work different when we're working with Christians? If you want to, I know you brought that up as a subject, and it's funny because I was going to bring it up if you didn't.
Oh.
So what do you think about that? Like when we talk about...
Oh, I actually was just going to ask you the same question. Now, I guess...
Yes, do it.
Well, I guess the thought that I had was like, okay, so the Christian aspect of being a therapist, like, okay, where do you... This is going to sound like a really, really remedial question.
No, it'll be fine.
But you know why I like it is because I kind of know the answer, but I want to know your answer because it's going to be better than whatever answer I get.
Yeah.
1 and 2, I want whoever's watching this to get a really good answer.
Ooh.
At what point do you insert Christianity explicitly, usually, and when's the last time that happened? Now, obviously, there's some implicitness to this. I'm going to see you as Christ sees you. I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated. And there's this implicitness that's always there. I don't think that ever goes away. I think our implicit integration just, hovers. I don't think it ever really goes away.
I like that. Yeah. We're always subjective to an extent. You're right. We can only just account for it.
But then there's this explicit, like when you really bring it in.
Yes.
What are some things you've seen, Yeah.
Love it. So beautiful. I'll walk you through it. I mean, when I do an intake with someone on my form, so this is everybody, and this is what makes it super appropriate and ethical, whether client's Christian or not.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going through asking about trauma or abuse. I'm asking about...
Before you go, for those that don't know,
yes,
we're governed by the ACA.
Yeah.
And one of the things in ACA Code of Ethics is it talks about, like, we need to know where they stand.
Yes.
That's part of the Code of Ethics. So it's welcome that you find out where they stand, at the same time not impose it. So go ahead.
Right. No, that's really good. I think people need to realize postmodernism gets talked about a lot, and it's kind of this whole idea of all truth is relative. And so what we've talked about the negatives of that, and I understand people's thoughts on that, but one of the elements of it is, well, when a client brings their religion to you, honor that and work with it. And that includes Christianity. So some famous characters like Albert Ellis, who invented rational emotive behavior therapy, were vehemently anti-Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought Christianity was a shame mechanism. Well, again, like, what are we talking about? Pathological shame that you're worthless, or guilt for doing something wrong? Let's talk about that. He probably meant the former, but we need
he probably hadn't experienced it.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't have documented.
Exactly. Well, we need some degree of mechanism to say I did something wrong, or else society can't work. It's ungovernable. But what I would say is, from the jump, when you meet the client the first time as a therapist, it's called an intake session, because you're intaking them to your system, your note taking, you're making your case conceptualizing. So you ask them what they're there for, their history, their social history, like their upbringing. What was noticeable about that? What did they go through? What is their birth order? What's their relationship like to their family? What is their faith? What other culture elements that they may hold to? So when I get that, when I hear they're Christian, I will say, we can make that a part of your therapy or not, depending on your preferences. And so for me, like, I tell clients I'm Christian, like, if they want to know, I mean, I got my degree from a Christian university, I'm a master. So it's a little hard for them not to know that. And I wouldn't want to conceal that. And I tell them, this is not proselytizing. It's not me preaching. This is not pastoral care. What it can be is an integration of your spirituality and your psychology, so your faith and your brain, basically.
Mm.
So, when did that happen last? That's a good question. I mean, there's two ongoing cases I have in particular that stand out where it's just essentially some degree every week or every time we meet. It's usually every week, but it's sometimes it's spaced out. But for one of these people, it comes into realizing that God does not call us to people please. He calls us, well, I want to be careful on that. He calls us to live sacrificially, but he calls us to remember that we are doing it and we are his beloved children. So we're not doing it out of a sense of groveling or earning someone else's favor. We're doing it to serve him, capital H.
Mm.
So that comes up in this case a lot. And it comes in an EMDR. Like if somebody gets stuck, if this person gets stuck in an EMDR session, I can draw on faith. And I'm just spitballing here because I've done that before. I'll be like, okay, what does this mean as what to your word as a child of God? Like that's something you can throw in.
Here's something that I was thinking about the other day, and I
Sure.
thought, my goodness, I'm sure you're the perfect person to ask about this.
Please.
And I don't remember if I texted you this or told you this, or I don't remember if I did or not. But like my newest, not newest, but just current thing that's kind of just brewing.
Yeah.
Is identity. And I'm
yes, you did say that.
And I'm sensing so many things that I find, in a loose identity.
Yes.
This problem, it's no identity. Like when we like you said, case conceptualization. When I case conceptualize and I tie in what they're saying and I go like this, and it's like especially with dudes, really anybody, but with men, it's a big one because men have a tendency to externalize all identity. Right?
Yes, they do.
And so I find that that's the thing. So here's where here lately I've been struggling a little bit.
Okay.
So it's because what I say about my identity is this. It's very simple. First of all, I say that who you are and what you do are not the same thing. Okay. You cannot put those two things together. The moment you do, when what you do changes, you feel like who you are changed. All right. What's the foundation? What's it sitting on? I use the analogy of a guy standing on a skateboard. If I walk up to you and you're standing on a skateboard and I push you in your shoulder just a little bit, you're just going to slide. And whatever you've got on a foundation that's rolling, whatever's on it, whatever decision's been made, however you think about yourself, if it's on something that's rolling, then you're going to roll too.
Agreed.
If you're standing on concrete and the same thing happens, you just move like that and nothing shifts.
Yes.
Who you are, what you do are not the same thing. So it gets really interesting when you're doing something super altruistic, like being a counselor or a pastor or a missionary. It's like, well, is that who you are, or is that what you do? And my own dad went through this as a pastor. He's been a pastor for 50 years. There was an element where he wasn't for like a very short time, and he struggled with his identity as a result. He said, well, if I'm not pastoring, who am I? What is my identity if that's not what I'm doing? And it shook him. And he said that what God taught him in that was that very thing, who you are and what you do are not the same thing. Pastoring is what you do. It's not who you are. And he went, ooh, well, if that's not who I am, then who am I? Mm-hmm. And that's when it really hit him that it has to be so foundational that it looks like this. I am a child of God, period. That's it. Anything beyond that serves that purpose.
Yes.
Anything. I'm pastoring. I'm a counselor. I'm a missionary. I'm a fireman. Anything I do. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. Anything I do serves a purpose that I'm a child of God first. He created us in relation. Here's where I'm struggling. I understand that, and it makes total sense. And I can take almost any problem within that context and route it, help them route it to that identity. Mm-hmm. What do you do when you can't route it to that?
When they're not Christian.
Correct. So you can't route it to child of God. They're going to look at you like, what are you talking about? Caveat, I have plenty of friends that are atheists that read the Bible because they know it's good stuff. It's like, if I'll do that, my life is better.
Yeah.
There's that. But
fascinating.
But now we're back to the identity piece. You tell somebody, when you're dealing with identity.
Yes.
Where are you going with that?
So that's a really good point. And it's hard not to think of the case. I've had several clients where I have known, like I've recognized there's a lack in telos, and we talk about it. Like you can talk about that respectfully because secular counseling theories would say that you need guiding virtues and values. Again, you look at, well, look at the Stoics, look at the Stoic philosophy, and you will see that they talk about living for wisdom, for justice, for temperance, for the different Stoic virtues, and embodying those. And it's never done. You never finish that. Along with ACT programmatized that, turned it into something that was essentially a whole therapy model that was more explicit about thought challenging and exercises and techniques, where Stoicism is a philosophy, like it's something where you engage in the dialogue of it and pondering it. And so it's not a workbook. It can be. I mean, you can make it that, but essentially for secular clients, if you look at somebody like Richard Dawkins, you look at people who are evolutionary psychologists, they would probably say, find what you're good at, find what excites you and makes you curious about the world, and pivot into that. And I mean, Carl Sagan. So Carl Sagan, the famous astronomer who did Cosmos, which was this whole phenomenon in the 70s, I believe in 80s, of, oh, how grand the universe is. Find the things that excite you and enliven you. And evolutionary psychologists would say those things that help you to feel, in some way that you are in an in group that you enjoy, or
say, is it socially integrated?
Socially integrated, but also I think you can say anything people do, I mean, is to survive or to procreate. I mean, you can draw a line, and there is an element of reductionism there that there's accusations of that. So you have to look at it and say, well,
you almost have to, you have to reduce it.
Well, right. So positive psychology would say, find happiness through doing. Find your identity through the things that resonate with you. A card sort. ACT does card sorts where it has you look at all these values like beauty, prestige. I mean, some of the values are straight up selfish and not like for others. And so I mean, that's a risk of any kind of therapy where you're saying follow anything. But I mean, they're not, I need to back it up and say they're not malevolent, but justice, beauty, serving other, compassion, all the different elements that are sort of sanitized through secularism exist in something like ACT, GBT.
You could say that their identity, if you're working with somebody who's not going to have that Christian worldview,
right?
You could say that the identity is the thing that serves them best in their community and their social reciprocity.
Sure, the thing that
makes them cohesive with what's around.
Sure, and also what they resonate most with, what is enlivening and enriching to them, what is energizing. Like
because that keeps you motivated.
Yeah, if you're working a career as an accountant and you love numbers and it helps you to find errors and to help people with your detail-oriented mind, you're more general or sort of motivated. Like, oh, I can do this thing. It's really exciting. Great. Follow that purpose. That's not what you are. It's one thing you do. What your humor, your tastes, and this comes into trauma theory because people with complex PTSD often don't know what they like anymore because they had to adapt to living with an abuser, whether it was a parent or a spouse. So basically, or a lover, or whatever. Basically, you go through and you help the person find their tastes again and desensitize the fear of doing that. And so I've had Wiccan clients. I've had clients who were atheists, as you said. You've had atheist friends. I've had clients all over who want to be more solid, or like I've had a Wiccan client who was very big on earth and the preserving the environment and caring about good powers and spirituality. I mean, that's not my worldview, but as a therapist, I'm going to respect what somebody's worldview is.
Oh, sure.
So they're all roads lead to, though, valuing principles and pursuits. Well, as you said, it's found in doing. We aren't what we do, but we have to be careful because a man who sits, I think it was Alan Watts, who said, a man who sits and does thinking all the time will only have memories of thinking. His only reference is thinking. That will have been all he did. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing it, but so you have to do. Your identity is the thing that energizes the doing.
It is. Well, okay. Oh, you just said it. It's the thing that energizes the doing. It's not.
Precisely.
It's not.
No, it's not. So when men
that's key.
lose their jobs, it's something you have to look at, well, what competencies did you have in that job and were you using? Because that's who you are. You're not the position.
Right. Even if somebody that's shifting careers.
Yeah.
If you're shifting a career, did you just
Yes.
lose who you are? No.
No.
Who you are serves that career and that career, right? It's like, okay, that's the piece where I'm finding myself wanting to spend more time when I'm with clients right now.
You should, because that's needed. We're at an identity, I would call it an identity bankruptcy crisis. So what we have, and this is the first article I ever wrote on Substack, was about digital dissociation, because I put a lot of stock and research into that. So basically, it amounts to, we get on these platforms, we curate an appearance, whether it's on X, Substack, Facebook, YouTube. The crowd reinforces us. We pivot into that more. It's called audience capture. So that happens. You live as a sliver. You create things as this influencer caricature. There's people who've had their lives ruined because they let the cheer of the crowd, like a gladiator, control what they do. So they become the role. So you're solidified and crystallized into this caricature of yourself. And so that happens in dating apps. If you have to perform, it happens because we're judging people on the sliver of who they are, right? So we've commodified and objectified ourselves and others. And so what are we losing? The whole picture that you and I can have at the table, or that you can have on a date with someone. You can have, and you're never going to even get the whole picture from one time in person. That's just how complex people are. But we are, so technology is always sold to us as the digital version of blank. And what's fascinating is the real version of the digital thing suffers from the influence of the digital. They have digital version of swiping, and it cheapens the real dating. So we'll say that, to not have the T word in there. I don't know what they would do. Probably nothing. But I mean, that's really, think of it like, we are so, as humans, we create tools, and then we say, oh, this is like, we create smaller dioramas and say, oh, this is like the real thing. And then we live by the diorama and want the actual, we create maps, and they get upset when the real territory has a guideposts on the map. It's so ridiculous. So every time we have a technology, people do the same thing. It's like, oh no, AI, it's just like Google. It's not going to change it. Really? No, it's going to make people think less, which, hey, I get it. If you use AI the right way, you can multiply your efficiency. But we have to be careful. This identity deficit, this identity bankruptcy we're living in, is because we keep shrinking ourselves. And it's not just altruistic. It's to get something. It's like the genie. It's like the djinn. It's something. It's, the monkey's paw. It's the Faustian bargain. You'll have it all if you just shrink yourself in this way.
Golly, Faustian bargain. You tend to close things out with a punch that leaves you going, I shouldn't talk right now. That's so good. You've done it a couple of times. You've done it a couple of times. Like, no, I don't like being careful.
Okay, don't be careful. I don't agree with you. I'll give a disclaimer.
Okay, I like it. I don't like it. I don't know. There's a good and bad to being careful, but
that's true.
But I found I kind of knew this going in. Okay,
yeah,
I knew it going in.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying this to tell you. I'm almost saying I'm telling to ask. You know what I mean by that? I'm going to say something, and I want you to bounce it. Okay,
call and response.
Gotcha. Ping pong. So I knew kind of going in that I saw things much differently than the majority of the therapists that are out there.
Okay. I think that's a fair thing to say.
I knew it going in. I was
not even wrong to be that way. Okay.
I was like, we're just affirming them. So they come in and they say they're a microwave. I'm just supposed to find the popcorn button. No, like, I don't think I'm in with that. I think I'm going to reroute that. Like, I think I'm going to tell them the truth, even though that might hurt their feelings a little bit. That's not something you want to do, but in times you kind of have to. Like, I'm not there. I don't know. I just realized I saw things differently. And so
you're tired of the value. Okay. Oh yeah. We'll gel on this. Keep going.
Yeah.
I'm championing the bit here.
Yeah. So that's okay. But I mean, that's like, it's a whole host of things, but that's the biggest piece is there's just, it's validate at all costs, affirm at all costs, just tell them what they want to hear so they feel better about themselves, and build them incrementally. What? Like, what's her name? Abigail Schreier said that, in her book, Bad Therapy, she talked about how often she found that therapists or clinical psychologists looked at certain clients and viewed them as annuities. It was like, well, let's just keep them in therapy forever, and we'll just keep telling them that they're great. So they'll just, I know I've got a cash cow here and we're good. Like, obviously we don't ever want to be in that place, but how do you accidentally get there? I think it's by affirming and validating at all costs. I think that, there's a guy on Substack named Jonathan, I'm going to butcher his name. I think it's Shedler. I don't know.
Jonathan Shedler.
It is
John Shedler. He's on Twitter too.
Yes.
John Shedler.
Dr. John Shedler,
professor.
Yes, Dr. John Shedler.
He's great.
He talks about therapy is for change.
Yes, he does.
which is wonderful to hear because there's just
what
not
it's
many
for.
saying that.
That's what it's for.
And it's like, if you come in and I'm just supposed to tell you how great you are, what did you get? You know? And so anyway, I guess I felt like an iconoclast in that way, that there was just not many therapists that I was around and that I was knowing. And I know a lot of people in my community and and then the surrounding communities, and they were all doing the same thing. They were all just validate at all costs, affirm at all costs, tell them everything's great, just make sure they feel good. And I'm like, how about I do this? How about I don't call you out, but I call you up?
I like that. Okay. Meaning call you to account for your behavior in a way that's non-insulting.
Let's take a step up. You're better than that.
Yeah.
You're better than that.
Well, I think I should let the audience know, I mean, if you're comfortable, that you got your start in pastoral counseling. And I think that's more of a thing there as well, because you're going to have that relationship where there's a telos to it to become a better Christian.
Okay.
Am I right?
Sure.
So look, man, this shouldn't be controversial. I'm just saying that. It shouldn't. This is what I say online.
It's going to be, but it shouldn't.
It doesn't matter.
That's
It's
true.
not,
No, you're true.
look,
You're right.
but because I'm standing on, if you look at the AC or the APA, American Psych or American Counseling Associations, the standard of what therapy is, the ethics of it. Therapy is a practice that induces positive desired change the client wants. Insurance companies want a treatment plan. Why? They want to know that you are doing something and changing something. There's a need for therapy. Measurable progress. That's called the C word, change. So by definition, our entire field is supposed to be about what you just said. However, because of the pop psychology influx and the stressor of the stressing culturally that everything is fine, hunky-dory, and don't offend anybody by talking about accountability, which is really not, like, I don't know what to point at for that. I think it's just that in my generation and the ones, so the participation trophy thing, I think that's been over talked about. It's just a point most people will think of and, oh yeah, I know what that is. But basically this idea that people are fragile and you can't say anything negative, that you can't say anything constructive because that's automatically rude or negative. I mean, that's wrong. So basically, kids are very resilient. Kids need to know that somebody loves them and is in a corner and that they matter. And so parents who've been through trauma and trying to overcorrect are so worried that anything negative happens to their kid at all is going to traumatize them. And I explain to them, no, trauma comes from being trapped and unable to escape and feeling unsafe. And so if your kid was even traumatized by something outside your control, but they know that you're a safe space and you'll do everything to protect them, the prognosis for them is amazing. They will overcome. When a kid knows that they are safe in relationship and worthwhile, it's amazing what they can survive. And I'm not saying traumatize your kids, but this gets into fragility theory and the idea, I'm making that term up, but the idea that anything, because again, if it's cultural, if human evil always comes from culture, you have to do everything possible to bubble wrap. It's a logical conclusion that we should validate all the time because that's what sends someone into darkness. Well, not true. So therapy, there's plenty of voices now, female and male, who are saying, yo, therapy is not just validating. That's step one. And in step one is, okay, thank you for acknowledging the problem. Like, you have to recognize there are things you have to change. Like I used to say, I still do, but it was my big catchphrase that trauma is never your fault. Change is always your choice. And I used to say change is always your responsibility. You could interchange it, but sadly, you can't make your abuser apologize. If it was something illegal they did, you could send them to jail. You can grieve that. You can write meaning grieve, like if they did something, if they're professional and they did something wrong, you can put a grievance out there to their board, their respective board of professional, whatever it is that they serve. But you can't make them fix you. They can't fix what they broke. You have to. So it's a painful talk, but it is something that if you're doing therapy versus coffee with a friend, something besides validation has to come in.
Has to. Yeah, I agree. And I kind of felt like I knew when I was getting in that was I was like, oh, you're not saying the things that everybody else is saying.
But you can respectfully bring in accountability.
Oh, yeah. And it's not like look, don't get me wrong.
I'm not
going into the room going, hey, punk, and stop.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
There's a market for that.
But there is an element of, I'm going to tell you the truth because apparently nobody in your life ever has.
So that's amazing. And that's what they're paying us for, really, is you learn tactfulness and you hopefully have it going in, but then you refine it more. And I remember having a client and he identifies Christian, and I would say something about a Bible story. He said, I don't know that one. And I said, you really need to read the Bible and not, I said, where do you get your knowledge of Christianity? I was sermons. Well, you also need to read the Bible because that's where you're going to see God's promises for you. You need to read them yourself. And so that's an example of saying, hey, I love working with you. And I want to share this with you because he wanted to do Christian therapy. So we did Christian therapy and EMDR. So it was ethical. Now it wouldn't have been ethical if I had an unchristian client. I said, read the Bible. That's crossing a line.
Right.
This dude's fully Christian.
Yeah.
He says,
A4B, actually.
What'd you say?
A4B. It's fresh on the brain.
Exactly.
The imposition.
Yeah. Yeah. The imposition. That's a good question to thought. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. And by the way, the first thing I thought when you were talking was that we got more fans of Jesus than followers.
True. Well, we're fans that he loves us.
We're
but
fans.
They don't pick up the cross.
We'll consume the product, but we don't really. Are we really? Who wrote about that recently? Freda India wrote about that.
Yeah. Well, so she did write about it, and there's a book called Not a Fan. I think, and written by a Christian. I need to find who wrote that, but so no, Free India is great. I mean, she worked under Jonathan Haidt, and Jonathan Haidt is great. Who did the Anxious Generation? And I've got a lot of notes I took after reading that. We should do
Coddling of the American Mind too.
Yeah,
that was amazing. By the way, I watched that documentary.
So we need the sort of elder statesman of the therapy world to come out and say, or of the psychology world, because I think he's a research psychologist, to say this is healthy and this is not. And
what he's doing some.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
His initiative there's some initiatives I don't know that I'm 100% on board with.
Okay.
But his initiative to remove phones from schools, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You walk in the door and you hand them in.
Yeah.
They're seeing very, very strong measurable results when they're doing that. Like night and day results, test scores, attendance, physical health. All of it is like changing rapidly. By walking in the door and handing in a phone.
Yeah.
My wife's school, she teaches at high school. Their policies, you hand them in when you walk into a classroom. And there's literally a pouch on the door, a bunch of pouches on the door. You have a number, and if your phone's not in your number, you're absent that day. Your phone's not in your number. Now you got the kid that goes, well, I don't have a phone. Okay, let me see your bag, because you say you don't have a phone, and the moment one comes out and gets into your hand, you're not here. It's like, we're not going to mess around with this. And so that's what they're doing.
That's good.
At that level. They're not really doing it. It's like right when you walk into school, but they're doing it when you walk into a classroom, and it's helping. It's helping. These people are actually getting something out of it. He also has the push of the 4 new norms. His 4 new norms. His 4 new norms are, let's see, wait until they're in I think it's either the 8th grade, to give them a device, wait till they're 16 to have social media. There's another one I'm not thinking of. And then I think the 4th one he always gets to is when he talks about more free play, more unsupervised free play.
Free play is the way that human beings develop tenacity, not under pressure. Fathers and rough and tumble play with children helps them to test their limits and to feel safe in the midst of a small little fun challenge. If we knew the technical terms for all the stuff that we just laugh at or throw away or say doesn't matter, we'd be appalled. That's what we're learning. That's where evolutionary psychology and a lot of this stuff comes into. Unsupervised play, play is the imagination's domain. Play is imagination's playground. I don't like using the same word in the sentence, but I workshop it. I mean, you nailed. That's very important. So too many people are
unsupervised play. Is the key, because we want
that parent out of there.
We want to follow them around the yard and go, if they fall, I'll grab them. And let them figure that thing out. I have my brother's raising all boys, and he said he had an instance where they were, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old. They run off. They both come running up crying. He said he punched me, and they just looked at him, and he said, actually it was his son with another friend's son, and him and his friend are sitting there, and then he goes, looks at him and goes, look, if you're good with this, I just want them to handle it. I want them to fix it. And he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay. He goes, y'all go away. You fix it. And when you fixed it, I want to hear how you fixed it. Then come back.
Wow.
And he sent them. Right. And they
Powerful
go off and they've got to
conflict
figure it out.
resolution. Yeah.
They got to figure it out. And when they did, they came back and go, here's how we solved it. And they came up with the solution. And he sat and the guy that he was with was like, oh, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. He's like, yeah, this is possible. He knew that. My brother knew that. And I'm not so sure the other guy did. And he just kind of goes, this is how they're supposed to handle these things. They're supposed to figure out how to do these things, how to fix it.
You got to let them. It's developmental. It's in industry versus inferior. It's depending. There's trust versus mistrust. There's autonomy versus shame and doubt. These different phases. So autonomy. Yeah, Eric Erickson.
So that's what that felt like when you said it.
It is. Totally, I'm stealing from him. It's that I was going to credit him, but it's this autonomy, knowing that you can do. So, I mean, I think there's so much there to the idea of possibly failing, like creating a just good enough solution and learning to roll with it. I mean, that's really important. So when you affirm that your kids can do that, and conflict resolution is, if you think about it, most conflict resolution is a dying art or considered extraneous. Like, let me explain what I mean by that. So if you don't like your marriage, just divorce. Why resolve it? If you don't like a friendship, ghost them, block them. They weren't good for you. They didn't understand you. We have taken a hit in the last 20 years since 2006 to conflict resolution in ways you wouldn't believe, because it's considered that the resolution is just to go away. Like friendship ghosting. People have written about that in recent years. People just do that. It's like, you're not suiting me. It's not worth it. Bye. Maybe not even bye, like just go, just disappear. Avoidance has become a counterfeit virtue. It's taken the place of independence, in my opinion.
Counterfeit virtue. That's really good.
Thank you. And there's something, I mean, it comes from the Greeks. I believe Aristotle had the vices of too much and the vices of not enough. Like cowardice versus being foolhardy are both perversions of bravery. Overcorrection. So I think we overcorrect. I mean, America loves to overcorrect for any, and I'm not anti-American. Let's not clip that of America, this, that, like, but we love to make everything as independent as possible. We are a rebellious nation. That's okay. But the thing is, we do have to be communal to an extent. You don't have to have all your neighbors know everything. I'm from a small little town. I get that. That's not adaptive to have everybody enmeshed up in everybody's business. But it's certainly not adaptive to be a person for the movie Wall-E that's in a chair with a big goal and a screen. And that's what we're being driven to. It's like under the guise of independence and things being tailored to you.
That's good stuff.
Guy Square stuff. You can talk about what you like from her.
Yeah, she's actually currently working on a book about therapy culture. And that,
I heard that.
Dude, that whole thing is going to be so fun to get into. And she's dabbling into it. Like she's throwing out essays like, by the way, this is kind of what's on my brain about it. And talks about what is therapy culture? What does it become? What are we, because obviously that's going to be something that you start talking to people who've gone through therapy and it wasn't successful, buddy. They're going to speak very emotionally about whether or not therapy is, a good thing or a bad thing. And
I'd agree with you.
So then you find yourself going, oh, wait a minute. Can we make it the individual and not the culture?
Yes.
Maybe you had a bad one, or maybe you just had a bad one that had a bad day, or a good one that had a bad day. Like, let's not put the whole, baby out with the bathwater thing. And so she's addressing those issues, which I think is brilliant.
I think so too.
You want to talk about like who's some writers that we're into?
Well, so I think you brought that up, and I want to say about therapy culture.
Oh,
yeah. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
What I've noticed about it is, I think you already mentioned very well that there's the validation is everything. I think there comes a sense of sloppiness of crisis of the week. Client comes in. Client can drive what we talk about, but we have to jump in and say, hey, this is what I think is going to be helpful for this. This is the training that I have. This is the methodology that's going to give you long-term change versus you feel better and got out of your system for a week. It's like drinking the poison and then purging it, drinking the poison and purging it. Why don't we just get rid of the poison in one go, one purgative session with EMDR or some kind of therapy that's deep work, memory work, as I call it. And then you're better to go. Maybe not good to go and leave right now, but the therapists have to be better marketers. There's no way around it. I'm sorry.
Well, okay, so that's a piece of it, but you also want the guy that doesn't just go, well, just talk more about that. Just keep talking about that.
Yeah, that's
Just keep,
lazy.
and you're just going, how about we don't?
Yeah, there's talking stuff to death. I mean, I think that goes back to, and I quoted something from Slavoj Žižek, whose work I like. And it's hilarious because I'm not an atheist and I'm not a Marxist, but I love his works on the mind and his view of things. And he spoke about that true health is not focusing too much. Mental health is true, not like focusing on it. I'm not doing justice as quote, but there's a lot to that. We need to be outward focused a lot more. We need to stop focusing on, I want to be happy, happy, happy. I'm anxious, anxious, anxious. Well, okay, what else are you? Identity, what else are you? If you've got a telos and you have an identity, then anxiety, yeah, you have it, you aren't it. It
That's
has
good.
you are it. Yes, thank you. So I would love to know the writers you like, or what. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, and I think we hit it a little bit, but what, so talk about your earlier career, maybe if you want, and then what got you into therapy. So that's two parts. And then the third, your career got you into this and what you've noticed joining in this field as someone at your age.
Yeah. So I was in the music industry 15 years, and was writing songs and wanted to kind of keep writing. So I started writing in other ways and other things. I helped about 7 years ago or so. I helped start a church. My dad's been in ministry for 50 years. And I've been around that world my whole life, and he has been counseling, and he has kind of given me, obviously without naming names or anything, just told me instances that he's had and things that he's talked about through the years. My mom as well has done some of that. So they were both been like pastoral counselors basically my entire life. And so I just kind of naturally formed into that a little bit. And when I helped start this church, and I've actually did actually even before then with other churches, but when I helped start this one particular church, I immediately fell into this role. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, you're the guy for this. When this happens, we're sending them to you. And I fell into that immediately, and then became that guy. And so I got into that, and I was seeing results. I'd been seeing some results in some other stuff, but this was like for me the first real test. It was the first real. Let's see if we really are any good at this. Um, and and my wife was noticing it. She was like, "You're you're you look like you might be good at this. That
Yes.
might be something you want to do for a living, and you don't want to trim yourself to just a bunch of Christians." And I was like, that's actually a good take. And I was like, I want to broaden. It's why when I was in music, I wanted to do country music. I didn't want to do Christian music,
Mhm.
because I wanted a broader audience,
Sure.
for the influence effect. Why? Again, back to why am I doing what I'm doing? To
Yeah.
influence people in a positive way. And so I wanted to broaden my effect, and that's when I shifted. I'm still doing that, but I shifted into going ahead and earning the right and the ability to do clinical work
Yes.
in the state of Tennessee. So that's where that kind of shifted for me. It became that I was doing things that I was seeing results, and those around me were seeing results. And it was like, you know what, you might actually have something here. This might be something you want to do. Now I realize you don't do it for the money. There's not enough money in it to do it for the money. But that you do it because you care about people,
Yeah.
really. Like you care about people and their lives, and you possess something that helps them get from point A to point B that they didn't already have. And normally that's just another perspective, really, is what it ends up being in my opinion. And then the things that I've noticed getting in, I have noticed that, you get these therapists that have just gotten out of school, and most of them just out of school are somewhere between 22 and 26 years old.
Yeah.
And they're just quoting textbooks at this point, right? They're just like, well, the theory of the Maslow's hierarchy and and they're just throwing out models and theories, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're good, and they're needed, and I like them. But then when you try to talk to one of them and you go, well, what do you think about this experience? And they're just like, well, I don't know, I've never seen it before. And it'd be something that I've seen 10 times. And so I'll go, "Ooh," like I'm finding that it's more so my lived experience that's getting me further in the counseling room sometimes than it is the models and the theories.
Yeah.
Um, the theories are helping, and the models are helping, and the education is helping. They're good, and they're needed. And I've learned a lot. I'm kidding. It's not that. I'm not trying to suggest I have.
I don't
I
think
have
so.
learned a ton, and I continue to learn. I mean, like I said, I pulled up your Substack and started learning. Like I listened to Dr. Paul and I started learning. I read Dr. James Nuzzo and I learn. It's like I kind of start. So Dr. Keith Campbell out of the University of Georgia, right? Love that dude. I read, learn. I'm just absorbing. Like, please keep talking because I'm still learning. But I've just found when I got into it that I was a step ahead of a lot of those that were around me because of lived experience. And I had a lot of instances and a lot of stories. And I've been around the world, and I've been to 43 states in the country. And, I've gotten to see a lot in my lifetime. And I've gotten to be able to take all of that and then apply it to when I'm sitting across from somebody and go, I've seen this before, even though I'm relatively new at this. And, so I don't know if that answered your question, but that's where the shifts took place.
Love that. I want to follow up and ask, what theoretical models or writers in the field, and it can be Substack writers, but also just what you're inspired by. I remember I loved narrative therapy before I discovered EMDR. I still think it's good, but what models do you like so far?
This is going to sound, I'm sorry.
It's going to eclectic.
It's going to sound like cliche is what it's going to sound like, but it is the umbrella of CBT, but under it, I actually do like a little bit of what REBT offers and the ABC model. I've used it a few times and it worked pretty well. I will use motivational interviewing, particularly if I'm sitting across from somebody who's, substance abuse, which I see a lot of.
Yeah.
Because in my clinical work, I do a lot of court orders.
God bless you.
Yeah.
I used to do that too.
90%, bro, the court ordered right now in clinical work.
Really?
Yes. It's almost everybody that I start. My first session looks like this. I don't need to be here, so go ahead and get what you got to get out the way.
Okay.
That's the first session.
And then you play your music.
Every one of them. Yeah, and then I'll play one of my songs. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, I literally spend the whole first session just winning them over. I mean, just like, so where are you from? Oh, I've been there. Yeah, I like that. Like, that's the whole first session is just, I'm not against you. I'm actually with you. And by the time we're done with the first session, like, this ain't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
That's the whole first session. That's
the
entire first session of every client I see. And so, yeah, when I've got those kind of guys, it's motivational. It's Carl Rogers. It's just, no, I don't like him, but
tread lightly here.
I know, but
I don't want to hear that.
I know.
I thought we just talked about validation therapy.
I know.
We just talked about that.
It's not really full on Rogerism. It's not really, but it's the aspect of
Roger's curious.
Well, okay. Yeah. What is it? Rogers adjacent. No,
yeah.
It's more, it's not really that as much as it is just during those first one, sometimes two sessions, it's just open the door and let them word vomit. And I just don't get in the way. I get out of the way for a little.
I think that's adaptive. I mean, I used to do an anger management.
That's a good point. Adaptive was a good.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it is, man. Listen, I used to be in a quarter anger management group, and I would open it and say, anger's not the problem. It's how we act with it. You probably have valid reasons to be angry. How are we making more trouble for ourselves, though, by acting certain ways? And so I had people come who were court ordered, and then they would leave if they, when their time was up. And then some people, quite a few would keep coming and say, I really like conversation. I like the community, and I can kind of talk about things and it's not judgmental. And yeah, that's the goal. I mean, the goal was to learn new tips, tricks, sustainable elements. And again, like, I like your vocabulary here, building an identity where your anger could come out in a healthy way and not in a self-sabotaging way.
It is.
And addiction is all about self-sabotage. And anger is all about self-sabotage. In many ways, problem anger, not adaptive anger. It's a whole different conversation we get out in another episode. But no, I love that. I mean, CBT has a lot of great stuff. I know Donald Robertson, who I encourage you to check out, and everybody here, who's a Stoic philosopher and therapist. I mean, I will say that he's a latter day Stoic, like of our day. He has studied so much of the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius, the different authors. And he talks about CBT took from Stoicism. Therapies,
there's no doubt.
Yeah, did not. Therapies kept relearning stuff because people would think they discovered something first. And that happened even in the recent years of, like, someone found out that, and I have it all written in an article somewhere, like a bunch of different names. So the founder of, like, there was someone who found out that CBT, the stuff that was most helpful was the behavioral activation element. Okay. Meaning doing something new, doing your way to feeling better. And then someone else discovered that later. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say doing changes that change. the action changing the behavior? Because you always got the whole, does action change behavior? Does behavior change the action? You got that?
Yeah. At least 2 people discovered that independently. And it was not like the person who discovered and popularized it. It was after another person found it. So we have to all compare notes here in the therapy world and see what amazing new things are coming out. I mean, now in our online world, I think it's better, but basically Stoicism came before all of it. And the idea of living, I think too many people stay in their head and try to think their way into health. And that's not, to me, that's not what therapy is.
Well, so throw in one more little wrench in there, and
I love that. Wrench it up.
You can speak to this. I'm here of late. I've spent a little bit, and I'll clarify why, but I've spent a little bit more time also looking at psychodynamic working.
You should.
And I didn't used to, and I'll tell you why. Is because even before I really started getting into all these theories and looking at all this, I was very averse to the concept that every single thing that's ever been wrong with you has to be traced to your childhood. I was just, in my lived experience, that's not always the case.
I agree.
Now, what I'm finding is it could be traced to most of the case. Like I am finding that if I had to put a percentage on it, it is above 50% of the time. Something happened when you were growing up that brought this thing on, and now here we are. And if we can find a line back to what that is, we can probably fix it.
Yeah.
I am finding that. And that's why I'm now sort of warming up to psychodynamic work where I didn't used to. I literally came in going, you know what? No, not everything's traced back then. Leave me alone. And that's how I came in. Very closed off, very averse. And slowly I've been warming up to it. And now I'm okay with it. I'll speak to that.
So I would say there's a lot of people like John Shedler who can warm your heart towards psychoanalytic concepts, psychodynamic concepts. So I'm going to say this. So the best way to understand, I think, for everyone out there is psychodynamic work helps you understand what defense structure and personality development you had from childhood. Yes. What did your childhood leave you coping with? So I've known people who were very intellectual. So, and I mean that in the sense of they're intellectualizers. And so everything needs to be quantified. Emotion needs to be turned into this understandable, spreadsheet. So, well, that traces back. So it doesn't mean that they're living in abject trauma. It doesn't mean that they were abused. It means along the developmental path, people will ossify. They'll kind of harden they'll be where clay in an oven being baked into a shape like pottery. And then we solidify in certain shapes that are due to what we learned to do early on in childhood. What coping skills? Was it humor? Was it people pleasing? Okay. Was it, we talked about that, people pleasing. Was it acting out to get attention? Was it yelling and screaming because it's the only way you could be heard? Ooh, those things persist. Those things are the artifacts of our childhood. And so what happens is we develop our lifestyle with that, these certain cards that we throw out of our hand, and the cards were determined by childhood. We can add more cards to the deck, or we could take the ones out that we don't want potentially through good work. But so that it just our childhood and how we develop our what personalities we develop and what coping skills we pivot into determine how we act when we're stressed a lot of the time. So it accounts for some of the picture. And I just love to look at the defense mechanisms, things like repetition compulsion, being driven to work out your trauma through sticking in or finding situations similar to the trauma to try to prove that you can overcome it this time, right? Like dating unavailable partners, entering into jobs or situations where you have to prove yourself in ways that were unresolved traumatic reminders. Psychoanalysis gives us that stuff. Now, I'm going to say one bad thing. So there was research that psychoanalytic therapy for trauma was not helpful. And I need to link to that in our video. But so it doesn't mean, though, that it's not good. It's great for case conceptualizing, but you need something to get into it because I don't believe insight is enough in therapy.
Right. And that's a good point. It could be used as something to just get you to the door or in the door. Then what you do with that could be a different. You can
shift, you know what the door is.
Yeah, you can shift and go to where. Okay, well now I know I'm here to get you where you want to be. I'm going to go to this therapy or this it's
a map
theory.
Yeah, it makes a map.
And because that's the thing that I'm warming up to it because I was so averse to the idea that because what I was hearing was everybody was like, well, let's talk about your childhood. Come on, man. My childhood was great.
Right.
Now I'm also not jacked up. That's another thing I found.
Okay.
I found that and you tell me if you've heard numbers. I want to say I heard some numbers and they were particularly high, but the percentage of people that get into the counseling field to sort out their own problems first, then become counselors as a process is some crazy high number.
Yeah,
Have you
I
heard
think
this?
I have heard that. I don't know what I don't want to misquote that and it may
Yeah,
sound higher or
yeah,
lower, but I do. We could put that in the chat. We could put that in the document too,
yeah,
on the stack. But I have heard that, and I think that that's accurate for a lot of people. But and I honestly want to say that shouldn't ever be your only reason. The reason, well, okay, so the reason should not be you want to figure yourself out. If the reason is I overcame this, I want to help others, great. But
yes,
you have to be able to look at therapy as a profession and something that has steps and a methodology and not just something that just happens and you're magically better. You can't be trying to reenact something where, as the wounded healer, you impart something to your patients from your own personal life. It has to be, there has to be a professional barrier there in a
yeah,
good way.
of course. And I don't want this. I really don't want this to sound. I don't know how it's going to sound, but I don't want it to sound like pretentious or anything like that.
Okay.
Oh, I really don't. I just didn't have that. I didn't have this bad childhood. I didn't have this event. I didn't have this.
Right.
I didn't have these things. I didn't have depression, anxiety. I didn't have any of this stuff. I just knew that I cared about people and I was effective in helping people while I was working other jobs and doing other things. And it
Yes.
worked. And as it was working, I was like, why not? Again, at the behest, sort of the pushing and the prodding of my wife going, look, you should be doing this. And I'm going, I've let her talk me into a lot of things that thankfully that are probably better for me. And this was one of them.
Good stuff.
Get into this career and do this for a living. Why not? Because even though, and so it's sometimes I'll be honest, sometimes it puts me at a little bit of a deficit because I'll sit across from somebody and go, man, I have never dealt with this. Like I've never dealt with substance abuse addiction
Sure.
ever. But I'm now seeing, I bet 70% of my clients are addicts.
Mm.
So, or recovering addicts. And so it's like, I'm having to figure it out real fast. What I'm having to get into their mind real fast, and figure out what's going on. And
Well, that's healthy.
it's put me in a place where I'm again just constantly learning. But I don't. I just found that's another thing I found since I've gotten into the industry is like I'm different, man, and I don't necessarily mind it.
So I think that's great. I'm going to say there's room for everyone in this field. So there's room for people who went through their own struggles and went out and got it through them, right? And are and helping others. And there's room for people who had stereotypical development and are neurotypical and are adjusted. So I think we have to have room for.
I'll say that I'm high. I'll say that if I don't know, I don't remember how long ago. It's been a long time since I've taken the Big Five test, but I'm sure I test high in neuroticism because
I hear you.
the whole creativity piece. So I wrote a whole thing on creativity being tied to neuroticism.
Oh wow, I have to read that.
Yeah. And
Good plug.
and it's absolutely connected, like absolutely connected. And there's study after study. I put studies in there. I cited a bunch of studies in it. And so
Nice.
there's a lot of connection to creativity and neuroticism. And so usually if you're high in creativity, you're also high in neuroticism. So
Yeah.
it's like you get the good with the bad. You get the ability to be able to do something that other people can't do
Yes.
in your creativity, but it comes with getting in your own head over stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Big
so,
five, man.
so I do have that going on. And so that did put me in a place where I was like, but it also, that same thing makes you emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
You get the gamut. You understand the array of the emotion rather than most men that I deal with. They walk in and they think, okay, I've got two emotions. I've got happy and pissed off.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, wait a minute. No, yep. There's more than that. No, happy, I'm pissed off.
That's tough, man. You got to have more than that. And I would say you need to work. We have to work on openness. Be open to new things.
Yeah.
Don't be low openness, high neuroticism, high disagreeability. It's tough.
I'll wrap it like this way.
All right.
That I've found, and before we were recording, I'll share what we were talking about before we got on, is that
Please.
I raised all girls. And so I'm used to the girl issues, and I've raised my girls to be strong, independent young women and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And I've raised daughters and I've been around women my whole life.
Right.
Now as a kid, I was around all boys. So it was my first daughter that made me go, oh, I got to shift gears. And I had to sort of learn that whole thing. And so when I started getting into this profession, I found that I started looking at the issues that were going on with men, and I started looking at the things we've talked about, things
Yes.
like suicide rates 4 times as high,
Oh, yeah.
more likely to die of the big 4: heart attack, diabetes, cancer, stroke, more likely to die on the job.
Yeah.
You could go down the line. All the issues that are going on with men, and what, 93% of all people in prison are male. I think is the last time I read. It's some crazy high number, and it's like, and I might be wrong on that. So if I misquoted, I'm sorry, but it was some stupid high number. Anyway,
It's pretty high.
I'm looking at all these issues with men, and I didn't even fully realize it was as bad as it is.
Right.
And I was going, oh. And so what has happened is I have shifted into that. If I have, it's funny. I had to turn this in for class projects. Like, you have to be in advocacy. What population are you advocating for? And I literally went men. And I thought I was going to get a pushback. I really genuinely did. And thankfully I did not. But so that's a shout out to, not getting pushback. But it was like, who are you advocating for? Men.
Oh, yeah. Good job.
Like, what? Men. Oh, okay. Well,
Right.
I didn't think that would be my route. It's another thing where I thought I didn't see that coming. I didn't
See,
think that was going to
right.
be a thing I was going for. And all of a
Sure.
sudden I found myself wanting to advocate for men.
Yeah.
Obviously there's men and boys, and they both have their issues. I think
Of
they're slightly
course.
different. And so anyway, so that's happened. That's the
Yeah.
newest, not newest, but that's the sort of world that I've found myself in now.
Yeah, man.
Because that's what I'm talking about most. It's what I'm writing about most.
Congrats.
And that's what I'm spending most of my time in, is going, look, see this issue with men? If the same issue was happening with women, we'd have a full scale CBS celebrity packed concert lined up by now. But it's happening to men, so we don't care. We're good.
I think there's a view, and I've talked with Lisa about that. I know, shout out to John Barry and Martin Seeger in the Men's Psychology Center in the UK. They talk about gamma bias. They talk about biases against men in the therapy world, or excuse me, like if a male concept. So they talk about gamma bias, which is that if a male attribute is good, it's generalized to the whole population, irrespective of gender. But then if it's bad, it's like honed in on men, like toxic masculinity stuff, versus positive elements of masculinity. That's just what should be applied to everyone. It's not unique to men. So I think women went through a lot and had it really bad until the 70s and 80s. And I think because they couldn't even have a credit card. Like, I don't want to understate that and make it sound like I'm not diminishing that at all. I want to say though that I think so that was just example of John Barry, one of his concepts he's brought to bear, gamma bias. For me, I think that you can tell me what you think on this. There's this concept that boys are born with confidence, and it's something you have to prune lest it become narcissism. And I think it's a cultural truism. It's like a cultural myth that we have in America and other Western societies, that boys and men are automatically confident. So if they're struggling, that's a quick fix, or they're not really struggling. So we don't need to train them to be confident and to believe in themselves, because they're already going to do that. If we lean into that too much, they'll become monsters. I don't know if that bears true with what you've seen, but that's what explains the lack of effort to teach men confidence.
It's 100%. You're exactly right. They're going to put the gas pedal down. You don't actually have to teach that. You can teach them culture. And I'll give you an example. In my lifetime, here's another lived experience thing. In my lifetime, most of the men that I have known in my lifetime, almost all, that had a sister, treat their wives better than those that didn't. I have found a pattern in my lifetime. Okay. When I have a friend, he has a sister, he treats his wife like gold. If I have a friend that had no sisters, he may or may not.
Interesting.
I found it. And what has happened is, and what I've discovered is that what you find is that you're taught to see the humanity in the person and not the sexual objectification.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's very healthy.
You don't grow up seeing them as, because like you said, when a boy has got, put the gas pedal down, risk, adventure, jump off the back of the couch and break your arm, and who cares? And just, I'm climbing that tree and you're not stopping me. Like this is how they're sort of wired. You don't have to teach any of that.
Yeah.
In fact, like you said, you have to put restraints on it so they don't hurt themselves.
Yeah, but not with confidence though. I think I think boys explore more, but they're not always more confident.
Not always. That would be true. But that goes back to social justification. Yeah. That's what's he doing and what's he doing and how do I relate?
And if they're not taught if they're taught that confidence is bad, they'll also, many of them will take that seriously, except the most obstinate.
Yeah.
And they're going to be obstinate anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I see that and I say, look, if we just culture boys,
Yes.
like, look, there is more than one way to do things. Cause like you said, they're, they're going to go where they're going to go.
Yeah.
What we got to do is go, whoa, hang on, look over here. See this? There's this too.
Right.
Like give them the way, the view that it's broader than what they're seeing. If you don't, they'll never look.
I think they need I think mothers that teach boys the ways of women and that teach how and when to do certain things. I mean, you need to exhibit confidence and vulnerability. And I think it's like, well, when do I exhibit each? What do I do? When do I show confidence? When do I show that I can take charge as a man? I think men have to be taught the why. And that goes to your word of being cultured. I like that because it's a good way of putting it. And, men are going to say, oh, all or nothing. Like what the guy who says, why bother? Why even do it? So men will say that about like putting the gas down on planning the date or showing ambition or being confident and say, well, I can't do it all times, so I'm not going to do it at all. Well, that's self-harming as a view. But some men are taught like that you can't listen when somebody says, don't ever be confident. You just can't do that. Like, and good people aren't going to say that. So basically, when dating or in a marriage or partnership or whatever you want to say it, it's still attractive for the man to be ambitious and to make effort. So that can't be something that we lose because then now we know women, like tons of articles, don't just listen to me on it. Don't take my word for it. There's tons out there about why don't men court? Where's the chivalry? Where have the men gone? It's a great question. So we have to look at how to solve that to say, well, actually, here's the way to be a well-rounded male. It goes all the way back to, again, your word of identity. The male identity is more than stoicism and being and earning. So, because you could be a man who's boring with a lot of money, and I know people will argue with this, and this is like a good thing to start a fight on. People will say, oh, women just want money. Dude, you're wrong, because boring men who make money may get a wife, but she may leave. Because if you're boring and you're not fun, you are out of luck as a dude. And guess what? It's okay because you can learn how to hone your sense of humor. But like guys who aren't rich and get girlfriends, when people are confused by that, that's because the dude is entertaining. Don't be confused by it. Learn about it.
That's that. Yeah. I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, there is an evolutionary aspect to seeking a man that can provide.
Seeking provisioning. Absolutely.
Provision and
yes, there is.
Even status in some cases. But it's not, it's really not. It's like the thing, what do you say? The attraction gets them, but the person keeps them.
Sure.
It'll get you in the door, but you're not going to keep her.
Well,
you can't go after that.
Well, charisma also evolutionarily shows this guy can navigate social hardships and fights and win. So his provision, again, look at the male instincts of fighting and winning and providing, protecting. They're both arguably equal because if a man is very assertive and confident and goes after what he wants and the ability, he has the potential to earn, that's sexy, even as compared to earning now. I think Rob Henderson wrote something about it, but basically, or maybe another evolutionary psychologist, but basically just don't take our word for it. Look at the kind of men that are found attractive and the kind of things that are in romance novels for women. I mean, there's going to be the CEO, yes, but there's also going to be the farmhand with the heart of gold who's charming and handsome and funny. I mean, everybody in a women's romance novel who's a male is not a millionaire. So you've got the different elements of masculinity that are found to be attractive, fighting and winning. Well, by the way, humor is the ability to laugh at danger and say, I have enough confidence and metabolic energy in my brain to focus on making humor in light of something. And I can go on a limb and say that's evolutionarily selected because it shows, it's like putting your neck out and puffing your chest out when you're fighting. You're showing nothing can hurt me. I'm going to laugh at things. I'm healthy. Nothing touches me.
But why
is that sexy?
But why is that attractive? Why do you think that's attractive?
I don't think that's attractive
to a woman.
Oh, because that shows that the guy has enough confidence and hopefully enough to back that up that he's able to take that risk on and he's survived this far.
Which is protective.
Yes. Okay. So that's, yes, 100%.
And providing
potential offspring. Yeah.
So I mean, it goes. We're connecting this directly to evolutionary principles, and
which is my wheelhouse,
which is good because it's about to be mine. Because I'm chasing it. And
what are you going to write about with it? This is good.
I haven't yet. I don't know, but because I'm like here recently. I was I don't know, bouncing back and forth with somebody. I'm like, look, why are we denying biology right now? Like, why are we ignoring and denying biology? And that's what's happening. And there's, I don't know, anyway, I could get lost in that. But
you get lost in
that's
it's
why
okay.
I'm myself.
Well, and again, people can identify how, I will say, a lot of women are open about like, look, I'm a woman and this is what's sexy to me. And a lot of men are open about saying, hey, I'm a man, this is what I find attractive. So when people consent to being categorized that way, we can say what is attractive to this group that's self-identified of hetero men and women or non-hetero, whatever. We can be respectful and say, we have to be able to paint with broad strokes when people consent to and are part of that broad stroke group and opt into it, right?
And
so that's fine.
And not shame the other side.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so I wrote recently, and I'm going to tell you, I said this. I said, how about the woman that wants to be a CEO?
Yeah.
And the woman that wants to stay at home and raise kids?
Yeah.
How about we shame neither of them?
Well, I agree. That would be the optimum, right? That would be the optimal step.
Why are we, you shouldn't, you shouldn't? How about you let it be them?
Well, evolutionarily, there's the in-group, out-group bias, and it's a cheap way. It's a low road to engagement to anger people about the opposite side. So you've got the trad movement, and a lot of those people are perfectly fine individuals. I mean, they're motivated by being homesteaders, and I'm not going to shame that. I'm also not going to shame women that need to have a career because they haven't met Prince Charming. Not upset about that. I think, look at the motivation of everybody.
I taught my daughters. Here's what I taught my daughters. I got grown daughters, all of them awesome young women, successful young women.
Okay.
I taught them, you get yourself in a position economically that you can take care of yourself just in case you can't.
Wow, that's a great point, man.
But if you decide to stay home and you don't work, good for you. You do you. Like, that's what I taught them. I taught them to create the foundation and then work with it.
Yeah, I think that's the optimal thing for anybody. I mean, men need to learn to work. They're not, again, they're floundering. Why are they not going to college? Well, they don't think it's necessary. Somebody's got to get a hold of these dudes. It's not, fine, college, then go to a trade school for a trade that makes 6 figures. Plumbing does. So, yeah, no, that's great, man. Okay, I mean, we'll stay tuned to hear what else you publish. I'm excited. I think for me, there's all so much to talk about, like men who do fake war and fake sex, which is video games and porn.
Fake war, fake sex. I love that.
That's what Jonathan Haidt. There you go. That's some good old hate. Maybe I'll tag him.
Is he really? Yeah. That's good.
But you orphan your instincts. You leave them nowhere to go. You give super stimulus like video games and porn so that your natural drive to court or to win a challenge, right? Courting, taken by porn, winning a challenge for money, taken by video games. It's like you've done coke and now you've done it and your dopamine receptors are used to this. And how are you going to do something that's just a normal level of nourishment, not cocaine level, right? Level of gratification.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And these things are so mild. I mean, and so I want to be very careful because I'm not conflating people watching adult material with completely destroying their ability to enjoy sex. I'm not wading into those political waters. There are people who want to talk about that. I'm using as an example, if you habitually only get your romance needs met through that, but you wanted to meet someone before, and now you've decided to develop only this screen love affair, most people would say, hey, if you didn't set out wanting that and now you're doing it and it's upsetting you, that's a problem, right? Clinically speaking, if it's subjectively bothering to you. So we have men getting distracted by all these things, and societally it's going to have an impact. So they've got to follow their instincts in a healthy way, and we all have to gather around, rally around them. The why it happened doesn't, but we know it's not great. We know it's not great boys are doing this, but shame isn't going to work with it. We've got to help usher them into adulthood in a way that's kind and adaptive.
Brilliant.
That's you. Anything to add? Anything you want to add in closing today's talk, which was riveting?
No, I'm glad. I was just glad to meet you and hang out with you, man. I was, like I said, I've been learning and I keep learning, and
me too.
And that's what's, to me, I'm almost become addicted to learning.
That's a healthy addiction, unless you get into cognitive hazards or info hazards.
Oh, well, yeah. But I just this is like I just keep wanting to go. Yeah, I want more.
Oh yeah,
and I'm finding it, and I'm enjoying it. So, yeah, man, we'll get out of here.